Welcome to Tiny Game Chronicles episode 39. My name is Marcus, and here with my good friend Michael. Every other week, we discuss games that are quick plays but epic journeys. It's great to see you today, Michael. How are you doing, my friend?
I am very well, Marcus. End of a long day for me, so we don't have daylight saving time yet, as you do. So it feels like we're working an hour longer. But other than that, everything is well. Thank you. How are you?
Doing okay, doing okay. I'm actually kind of excited. We were recording here on a Monday. I'm excited to get back to the regular week. It was a busy weekend. Lots to do with our little guy, and yeah, it's
Okay.
it's it's funny. It's one of the weekends are not. Um, we're not relaxing, Michael. It's more relaxing the days that I have to work. So
Okay.
yeah, it seems like I've got a little bit more time to myself at least to get stuff done. So yeah,
Woohoo
just
for Mondays. Yeah.
yeah, it's just how it is having a young
Uh,
high needs little
uh,
guy. So yeah.
absolutely.
Um, before we get into our discussion today for the game, don't get your hopes up, Michael. I do
Yes.
have a question for you.
Yes.
Do you have tell me about your very first apartment that you lived in? Like when you're first living out on your own. Do you
Ooh.
remember? Like tell me about it.
Oh, I need to. I need to.
I know this is a little bit of a ways away. Like it's been a while since your first apartment. I'm expecting. Yeah,
Yeah,
few years.
I think I was. I think I know. I was in Port Elizabeth in South Africa, and when I finished school, I went to the Air Force. It's part of the military service, right? The things
Yep.
that we do. And I eventually, after doing my military service, I stayed on an extra 2 years, just because the things that I wanted to do, I needed some more clarity on, and so I wanted to buy some more time. And so I was, I don't know, part of like a military mensa in town where I used to live. And then when I realized after 2 years of being on permanent force that I didn't want to stay there any long, it was, I think, my first incentive to look for an apartment within the same city. And yeah, it actually wasn't too difficult to get one. And I'm thinking it's the year 1991. So where I moved as let me think, a 21-year-old, for the first time, 21, 22, into my first apartment. And I really dug it. I remember the first time that I bought some furniture, my first hi-fi, our music center, right, that we had. I remember buying, oh, this is going to be sloppy, Kenny G, his first his first album, and enjoying some South African wine. We had or at least I had a beautiful balcony overlooking part of Port Elizabeth, very close to the movies, and it was a wonderful sign of independence. And I absolutely loved it. I could afford it. It was my kind of first working experience in the world of fashion per se. I did not have a bad job, so yeah, it was okay. But it was, as I said, it's maybe one grade up from a student condo, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, like a
So
one bedroom apart. Did you have a
yeah,
roommate?
exactly. A one
One.
bedroom
Okay.
apartment. I think I'm not even sure whether we had 60 square meters, but 50 something, maybe 55,
Okay.
57. Yeah, on the top floor, right, of an apartment building with a lovely balcony. So
Oh,
that's what I remember. And yeah, so the luxury stuff that it was there was my music center, with B&W speakers, listening to Kenny G with a glass of white wine, right?
there you
So,
go. There you go.
yeah. What about you, Marcus? Can you remember your first
Oh
time?
yeah,
Yeah.
I remember quite. I wasn't going to say fondly, but not really fondly. I remember quite
Okay.
vividly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my first, it wasn't even an apartment; it was a room in a house.
Oh.
So
Okay.
I was in. This is while I was in university. So I was in a co-op program in university. So that meant I was doing work terms for certain semesters. So it was like
Hmm.
I want to say the fourth, like in my second year, the second semester of my second year, I had
Hmm.
a work term.
Hmm.
And I went to university about an hour outside of Toronto.
Okay.
And my work term, though, was in Toronto. So I had to find accommodations in the city of Toronto so that I could work for it was like the winter, January through April. And it was kind of stressful to start. Like the university kind of helps you, has
Yeah.
listings where people can, but there wasn't really all that much help. I think I was, I think I was looking in the newspaper, Michael. Like
Oh
this
wow.
would have been
Okay.
in when was it? About 1999, the
Okay.
winter of 2000.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, I was looking at like newspaper. I think I went to the University of Toronto's housing listings and seeing if I could. So I like did a weekend trip into the city to do that, and ended up finding a room in a house. The
Okay.
landlady lived in one of the rooms, and she basically stayed in her room. She had a little like kitchenette sort of situation, so
Okay.
she cooked all her
Sweet.
meals, and then there were two rooms that she rented out in the upstairs, and then the
Yeah.
downstairs basically just had like a living room and a kitchen. That the kitchen was shared for the two tenants that were there, and yeah, I was paying. I mean, I don't know if it's a lot. It felt like a lot at the time. It was like $400 a month
Oh
Canadian for a
wow.
room in a
Okay.
house,
Okay.
but it was pretty central. So I don't know if any of the listeners, I was living like Spadina and Bloor. So it's kind of right on the subway line, not quite like in the central part, but pretty close and like very walkable neighborhood. So it was a cool neighborhood to live in.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, that was my very first I guess
Sweet.
rental situation. I would have been like 19, I think, at that time.
Okay.
So yeah,
Price wise, was it expensive back then? four
it
hundred
was
dollars
expensive for a
Was
room.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
gotcha.
think
For
like
a room,
for
exactly.
just a room. You weren't
Yeah.
like I think like subsequent apartments that we had that were again outside of Toronto. It was in the
Yeah.
city that my university was in. It was more like $200 or $300 a month that I would share with my roommate. So
Yeah.
the total price,
Yeah.
but it was for a full of like 2 bedroom apartment
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I remember. I think if I were to put it into dollars, about 550 or 570
yeah,
dollars per month for an apartment, right? So
yeah,
that's why I thought that your room
yeah.
400 quite expensive,
400
right?
at the time, it felt like a lot.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with
Yeah,
you.
it
I'm with you.
definitely felt
Yeah,
like a lot. Um, yeah, good to go down
yeah,
memory
memory
lane
lane.
with that. Yeah, with that. Okay, Michael, before we get into our discussion about Don't Get Your Hopes Up, we did want to point folks towards our previous episode of Pony Island. It's a really interesting discussion about an interesting game.
Mhm.
A very, I don't know, how should we say it? Like influential game,
Yes.
indie game from about 10 years ago. So, yeah, I liked
Yeah,
it. Yeah, it's a pretty cool game.
yeah. Daniel Mullins basically kind of showed, his talent, what he's made of, his ingenious brain, and yeah, Marcus, it was a game where I would say it was good that I played it.
Yes. It's one of
Um,
those things. It's like, it's nice to be able to experience and see what people
exactly,
have talked about and to see the DNA of maybe
exactly,
subsequent Daniel Mullins games, but also subsequent other games that we've seen in the indie space.
exactly. Well put.
Okay, let's get into our discussion about Don't Get Your Hopes Up. Don't Get Your Hopes Up released on PC on September 16th, 2025. It was developed and published by a solo dev by the name of Krish Raghav.
Hmm.
The Steam description reads, "You're looking for a new apartment in Amsterdam. Your once confident search is morphing into panic. Nothing is available. Anything will do. Anything." Gameplay is pretty standard visual novel. You're clicking, on the screen to advance the story. There's occasionally some dialogue choices. It's got this interesting, almost like comic book panel
Hmm.
presentation. There's currently no score on OpenCritic or Metacritic. It's a pretty small game. Steam user reviews, though, are listed as very positive. I think there's between 50 and 60 reviews. So
Hmm.
this is definitely one of the smaller,
Niche.
tiniest games, niche
Uh,
games that we've ever
uh,
played for the show. We start out our conversations, Michael, by asking ourselves three questions. What did you play it on? How long did it take you to beat? And what are some high level thoughts you have about the game?
So Marcus, I played it on the Steam Deck just to kind of see whether I could take it to bed and play it from there, like on a weekend, on a Sunday morning. And I had the experience that there was no sound in the prologue as the game starts. And I kind of was wondering, okay, was something with my setup wrong? Why ain't I hearing anything? And I said, okay, it must surely be a Steam Deck thing. Let me go to PC. I need to realize later that the prologue definitely has no sound,
Yeah, no sound in the
which you
prologue.
find out.
Hmm.
So I wish I would have found that somewhere or heard some noise. Then maybe I would have stuck playing with the Steam Deck. But then once I started on PC, I decided let's continue playing on PC. You've mentioned it, right? So my top line thoughts: it's a small, sharp, interactive comic video game, if you want to give it that sort of term, right? That turns 1 week of apartment hunting in Amsterdam into a slow, oh, one could say horror story. And but we are kind of seeing a little bit of a slice of life of the experience that the developer had living in Amsterdam. And so I love the art style that is there. So there's a lot of kind of hand drawn, half funny aspects that the game brings about, but I think always with this consistent feeling of insecurity, if that makes sense. So this is what it kind of stayed with me. If I were to give it a different title, I would call it Application Denied, a housing story, right?
Yeah, yeah.
um, so I think is a statement game, if that makes sense, and maybe puts into question um, what we feel about what it's like to think that you have control over something. But it is about a game that maybe shows you that certain systems can't be beat, no matter how well you play or what strategies you follow. So this is what is kind of left for me. What about you, Marcus? How did you
Well, the
find the
first,
game?
how long did it take you, Michael? Do you remember?
Just over an hour. I think an hour and five or so. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I played mine entirely on Steam Deck. So I was aware because you were like the prologue doesn't have any volume. So
Mm,
I was like,
mm,
okay, it works okay on a Steam Deck. I would say it's probably a better experience on your PC with the
mm,
mouse controls. There are, you do have to use the mouse controls, the trackpad on the Steam Deck. Not always though. It was sometimes like you had to use it sometimes, but sometimes like hitting the I think it's the A button would
mm,
allow you to advance dialogue, and it worked like it normally would in a game like this. But other times you had to like pull out the cursor and go and click on the dialogue choice. Um, and there was a couple of times where you have to drag stuff on the screen, and I had to like use the touch screen on the
okay.
Steam Deck. So
Yeah.
it wasn't ideal, and it's certainly not optimized. It is not
Yeah.
Steam Deck verified, but it was fine.
Yeah.
It's a short game. It took me like I think 60 minutes, almost right on the dot. I think
Yeah.
62 minutes or something. My Steam
Okay.
clock
Yeah.
said.
Yeah. Then we were pretty much the same. Yeah.
Yeah. So high level thoughts. I think this is the type of game, if we're going to call it even a game, it's an
Mm,
interactive story, right? Like it,
mm.
but let's call it we'll use the term game for the purpose. I think it's like, I think that this is an example of a game that doesn't like do game. When people ask ourselves the question, or when we ask ourselves the question, do games have to be fun? I don't think this is fun, but I
Mm.
think it's important, and I'm glad it exists because it has
Yes.
something to say, right? I think that it's exploring a topic that is very relevant to a lot of young people today. We've talked about it a little bit offline. I'm not sure it's
Mm,
super relevant, at least directly to us in our lives today, but it's
mm.
certainly an issue that I think is not just, confined to Amsterdam. And I love
Correct.
that it exists, that there are pieces of art, because this is really art, that are
Yes, it is.
exploring topics that are important to people. And yeah, like it's important that it exists. And that doesn't mean it was fun to go through this. I don't think like this is like a great game, but it's
Yeah.
important that it exists, and I'm happy that I went through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm totally with you, Marcus. I think
Yeah.
that this is, and we'll have it in our standouts, right?
Hmm.
Maybe this pushes the envelope of our classic understanding what a video game is, right?
Sure.
Or should be, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, a brief reminder for listeners about how we talk about games on Tiny Game Chronicles. We like to identify three things that we think particularly stood out about a game, do a deeper dive discussion on each of those three things. And we almost always, we're going to do so here, Michael, avoid specific story
Yeah.
spoilers. We're
Yeah.
going to obviously talk a little bit about, some of the things that happen in the game, but I don't think it will be to a level that will ruin the experience for
Yeah.
anybody if
Absolutely.
you still haven't had a chance to play it. Okay, Michael, let's get into our first standout. And you mentioned it in your top level thoughts. This is a real slice of life sort of experience. And it's specifically taking a look at how challenging it is, the horrors around trying to find housing in a city like Amsterdam.
Yes. I think you need to obviously take into account what Amsterdam is known for. It's a very free city, right? There's a lot of creativity, creative people living there. It has a unique architecture. It's quite big. Amsterdam per se, it's about, so we live about 4 hours drive from Amsterdam, so not that far. And at least once a year, we would go to Amsterdam or close to Amsterdam to have some holidays because it's obviously not that far from the sea. And I think just to put it in the perspective with regards to how the process is of looking for housing, and I think that this game, without going into spoilers, but I think describes the process, the routine that you need to go through every day in order to make sure that you have invitations for viewings of selected apartments, right? And so we are looking here at, I think, 5 days, Marcus. I'm not exactly
I
sure if it
think
is
so.
5 days.
Yeah,
No, I
a
think it's
week, a
5 days. It's a
weekish. Yeah,
week, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Where Raghav is kind of semi-autobiographical. Obviously, this game
Hmm.
goes online, checks listings, fires off kind of hopeful emails, applications. You kind of go into this routine in order to be invited, be accepted, to go and view whatever apartments are available. And if I look at the housing situation as I have in our country in Germany, this is very much what it looks like at the moment. I think gone are the days, maybe in the early 90s, right, when we had a solo viewing of an apartment or of a house. This very much is a situation in Germany that we have, 20, 30, 40 people going for a specific amount of time, and that's when they say it's viewing times between 3 and 5, for example. But you have like this amount of people going through an apartment, submitting an offer if the apartment is interesting for them, and then the landlord getting back to them to see if they're accepted, yes or no. And there are countless of horror stories of people that struggle to find um, proper accommodation, right? And we're not talking about singles, we're talking about families, we're talking of people that, have a few kids and they need an appropriate space for that. And that has become extremely expensive in Europe, kind of
Yeah.
living space, right? And I think this is what Raghav is highlighting the frustration of two young, I would imagine, students, right?
I think they
Trying
say
to
that they're at least one of them was a PhD student, if I
exactly,
remember. Yeah,
trying
yeah,
to find accommodation
yeah.
and the process that they need to go through, which kind of makes it not really fun. And I mean, you mentioned it also, Marcus. Now the game isn't fun, right, per
Yeah.
se. I mean, it's worthwhile going through, but that frustration that they sit through is kind of very much non-fiction. If
Hmm.
you can call this like a non-fiction comic. And he's put it in a great kind of interactive form. did you feel, Marcus, that the game was able to communicate kind of this house hunt like a ritual, or more than a challenge?
Yeah, no, I think it does a really great job at expressing and showing how frustrating
Mm,
finding a place can be. Um, it's I think like housing at the moment in Canada, everywhere. I think we're going through this period where there's not enough, or at
yeah.
least and it's causing prices to be much higher. In Canada, it's less about um, rentals though, and maybe it's
Mm,
partly because, but when at least in the dialogue that's happening, in the news cycles, when we're talking about affordability
yeah.
in Canada, it's largely about purchasing homes, not renting them. And I think like the culture of home ownership is stronger here.
Yep.
Um, it's kind of there are few people who choose to rent indefinitely. There's always
Right.
kind of like this idea of again, I don't want this is obviously an overgeneralization, but I think like uh a common I want to say the overwhelming trend is for people to rent for a short period of time, when they're first getting established, and then to buy a home. Like
Right.
that is very much a pattern where I don't think that that's necessarily the case in some, especially kind of like older cities in Europe,
Exactly.
like in Amsterdam, right? And
Exactly.
so it's different, but it's similar sorts of issues. Affordability is still the issue. Competitiveness is still an issue. Like people are unable to find accommodations, housing that suits their needs, and they have to settle for something that is suboptimal
Yep.
because of the circumstances that we're in
Correct.
right now.
Correct.
So, getting back to the game, I think like it does feel very real. Like those frustrations, that competitiveness, it's like a job interview for this couple, right? Trying
Mm,
to get it. Like I can't imagine the scenario that you're describing of like the viewing
mm.
for rentals. I don't think that's a very common thing here.
Okay.
Like that sort of thing will happen like open houses for sales of homes, but it's
Right.
not such a thing for rentals of homes here. More the common like process would be finding a listing probably online today. You find a listing, you contact the landlord, mostly it's a landlord,
Mhm.
and you arrange a viewing,
Mhm.
and they're coming and meeting. It's a one-on-one sort of thing. It's not like this group situation. Um, and you're probably hoping to get one of the first ones because as long as your things check out, like they're they're not necessarily waiting for a whole pile of
Yeah.
applications to pick
Yeah.
the best one, right? It's more
Yeah.
kind of like a first come first serve situation. And this is I'll say that take my opinion with a grain of salt because I haven't had to do this for a while either. So um
Same here. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I was a landlord though for a little while. We had when we first bought the house that we're in now, we weren't able to sell our condo at the time. So we ended up having to hold on to it. So at the time we rented it out. And that was the approach that we took. It was like we took the first candidate that, had a decent reference check, gave me the security deposit, and I didn't want that apartment empty for any period of time. And
Yeah.
this is maybe 10ish years ago now. So
Right.
it's like it's not that far in the past. It's not exactly current, but I wasn't like waiting for a whole slew of applications and then just picking the best one. It was kind of like the first one that meets the minimum, is willing to pay the rent that I'm setting, and that's how I was
Would it be
accepting that.
different? Would it be different now, Marcus? 10 years down the line?
It's tough to say. I mean,
Okay.
I'd like to think that we were pretty fair with the landlords. We never
Right.
raised their rent on them. We just wanted a consistent source of income that would cover
Right.
it was only like mostly cover the
Yeah.
mortgage and the utilities and stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't the market didn't bear enough to actually fully cover it, but it was like I just wanted consistent because it was going to be a lot harder for me if it was empty for a month or 2 months as we're
I'm
trying to
with
search
you.
for the ideal candidate.
Candidate.
That was worse than potentially like settling for a little bit less on the rent and making sure we got somebody in there quickly so that we didn't have like a full month of no income. So yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. I think that this game does a great job at illustrating just the realities of house hunting today. Whether it's a renting apartment or just, buying one too.
Exactly.
It's the same sort of
Exactly.
same mechanisms that are in place here.
And I think, I mean, I don't know what it is like in China or in Japan or in other parts of the world. I think it's important that, yeah, we need to
Yeah.
know this is Europe, right? Land per se is pretty scarce. There's a lot of old money and old money and property, that is invested. And because I think that we have such a high amount of refugees, I mean, we have a few million refugees in Germany per se. Um, if they're not living at a refugee camp, it sounds horrible.
Hmm.
But once you're through the process and once you've got your papers to be able to stay in Germany, then yeah, you need to find a space. And I think for people that are foreigners, and I don't want to put people in any sorts of boxes, but it can become more challenging if you see a name that is maybe difficult to pronounce in an application, whether that person will get a yes or a no, right? Chances are that there is some sort of discrimination already happening right there.
Yeah.
And that's another reality, right, that we're facing to today, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, Michael, let's move on to standout item number two. And there are some choices that the game gives you.
Mhm.
So you have the opportunity as as your characters are going out and viewing apartments to put applications in to bid what they're asking
Yeah.
for or to overbid. You have to choose, I don't know, how many applications you're going to send out at the beginning of each day. You go through this routine, and you asked the question, and I thought it was a good one to explore. Like, do these choices even matter?
Yeah, and I keep on asking that question, right? Because I'm not exactly sure whether we can find a good answer. But if you just look at what the game says, it kind of puts that in question. With regards to also, and I'm going to take this to the way that we play games, right? Is there an optimal way to play this housing game? Don't get your hopes up, in order to actually have an optimal result. And that's exactly the question that I'm asking, because on the surface, it's a very simple visual comic novel, right? You read, right? You make a small talk, right? So small conversation. Yeah, you bid, no, on certain choices that are there, which leads you to chase. Obviously, you want an apartment or a suitable, four walls to live in. Um, and there's just enough branching and few different endings to make you wonder, if you just look at the achievements that you can get, whether those decisions really matter. So the whole routine that you put into, does it actually really make a difference with regards to the end result? And
Yeah. Well,
so,
I mean,
yes,
I don't know. Just to kind of butt in here, I guess is like
go for it.
it's a bunch of terrible options, Michael. These apartments that this poor
Yes.
couple is looking at, they pretty suck. They're not
Yeah.
great. And
Yeah.
so like, does your choices matter? It's like you're just making a choice of a bunch of really crappy choices. Like they're really terrible apartments,
Exactly.
Michael. Yeah.
It's
So
exactly.
from that perspective, I don't know that it does make much of a difference. And I think like that's probably an overall theme that's
Mm.
going on within this
Yeah.
game is like none of this matters. It all sucks. It just all sucks.
And I think it's the end. I think what the statement that he's trying to make is that the system is actually one where agency, or the feeling of agency, is non-transformative. In other words, there is no effect regardless of how much agency you feel you have. So it doesn't matter how many applications you fill out. It doesn't matter how many views you have, right? It's almost like it's always predetermined with
Yep.
regards to what you're going to be getting or what you're not going to be getting.
Yeah.
And I think this is what the unfortunate, a little bit of a hopeless message, right? That the game is communicating is that the system, the housing system, as we know it per se, which is very unregulated, is
Mhm.
corrupt or is sick in its core, if it makes sense, right?
Yeah. It needs fixing. It
It
needs something.
needs
It
fixing.
needs fixing because at the moment it is broken,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
100%.
and
100%.
I think that that's fair. Like it again, you are forced into, as playing through this game, you're forced into just making the best the best you can. Like there are no good
Mm,
choices. There are no good
mm.
choices. So at the like, does it matter what you pick? Doesn't they all suck? They're all terrible. So I don't know. It it
uh,
and
yeah,
without getting into the specifics of why they all suck, all
yeah,
these apartments that you're looking at, but yeah, there's some pretty bad options out there. And like these characters are like trying to spin it in a good way. Well, it's not so bad for this reason, for that reason, but if you take a step back, it's like, man, you guys are really it's really dire straits because this is nobody should have to settle for the things that you're
absolutely.
considering settling for, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
the question is also to what extent can we, and maybe we do have this problem here as well in Germany, that the standard, because we're talking about specific standards of housing that we would consider are um, places where you could live and have a dignified life, if that makes sense, right? That is also not happening within the German context, because a lot of clans kind
Mm,
of run specific areas within some of the bigger cities where they offer like really crack of accommodation at the highest possible price for people that have been brought into this country. And these kind of
mm,
rings, and then this is maybe also what the game is hinting at a little bit, right? The fact that there are inhumane conditions
yeah.
being sold as apartments
Right.
for you to make a living in, right? Which
Yeah.
is here a social commentary.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to standout number three because that I think that kind of that last comment dovetails nicely into
Yes.
this one. So we're talking about, or we want to talk about the presentation of the game. So this is presented as a comic, a zine, a memoir, very visual, but it's also like it's got this political commentary integrated into this. So where do you want to start with this, Michael?
Well, I think that this game has a lot of humor and maybe slash satire,
Yeah.
right, involved in it. And I mean, I had to smile because why did they specifically choose Amsterdam? I mean, Amsterdam is kind of known for its coffee shops, right? And
That they don't
maybe
sell
they
coffee for anybody who hasn't been to Amsterdam.
exactly
Yeah. Well, they
coffee
might
shops
serve
with
coffee, but that's not the main thing.
exactly they
Yeah,
might
yeah.
sell you cake with something in it.
Maybe some cake, yeah.
And I think this shows a little bit because the way that this game is presented, the specific apartments, a line, a visual gag that you'll experience, has the time to make you laugh and wince at the same time. No, it's a juxtaposition of emotions that is there. So visually, you're moving through comic panels. Some of them are also photo-based scenes that show the real Amsterdam. Almost like flipping through like a political zine, if I'm gonna say
Right.
it that way, kind of just to show the conditions of the city. And every page has another little snapshot, be it of the market or a specific suburb, right, present within Amsterdam. And so, moment to moment, the tone of the game walks you like on a tightrope between dry observational jokes and other, and you've commented on this as well, Marcus, offline, this kind of exhausted, surreal satire where you
Yeah.
see grotesque apartments, right? Ridiculous conditions.
It's so
With
absurd at sometimes, right? There's like this
totally,
absurdity of these apartments that this poor couple has to consider, like
yeah,
seriously consider.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of absurdity.
So for me, it's a mix between that kind of chuckle, right, and then you actually sit and you say, well, why you actually thinking this is funny? Because if you of what I said earlier, there are apartments in Europe that I question myself: how could this ever be in the market? For people to actually live there.
Mhm.
So there are, there is a hint of truth, right, to the satire that is shown to us. Um, so I think this is a game that kind of teases us as players. I think it's important to have in our game culture these type of moments where we're kind of not kind of chasing rewards or high scores or seeing which is the best apartment, or how do you get the best tenant, right? These type of games, but it kind of injects it with a flavor of, what are the compromises that people perhaps need to make today. And sometimes, getting an apartment, and I'm not sure, Marcus, whether you at the end selected one of the apartments that was on offer, but how hollow that can feel if your application was accepted, right? I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I don't know. In terms of the presentation itself, too, I think like it comes off, at least in moments. It reminded me of the game Florence, like these
Yes,
panels, these comic
yes,
style panels. But I do really like, because I think it adds an extra layer of these real like photograph shots that are integrated in, particularly when it's showing some of the apartments, and it almost feels like these were photos of apartments that the dev had toured at some
yes.
point, like and yeah, I think it's a really effective way to tell the story, and again demonstrates that commentary on the
Mm.
situation. So I think it was really effective. It it really struck me in the way that it would always ask you if you wanted to overbid for the game. Like there was always
Yes.
kind of that dialogue choice
Yeah.
that would come in right at the end of you viewing these kind of crazy apartments, right? Without getting into the specifics, because I think that
Yeah.
that would ruin things for folks. And you always had the option of overbidding, and it's like, overbidding? I should be underbidding this garbage. And I think, like, again, that
Uh,
it just speaks to that message that is trying to be really emphasized here in this game, is that we're in dire straits here. Like this can be
Absolutely.
really challenging for some folks in the position to be looking for apartments in cities like Amsterdam.
And now also, what are the chances of you underbidding, taking quickly to the German context, if you have another 40 people with you,
Yeah,
also viewing that apartment, right?
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
that's the other factor. Yeah, yeah, very good. Well done as as a game, I must say. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so that's it for our standouts, Michael. We do have one that was submitted by a community
Yes.
member, and this was
Woo.
submitted by Slugcat Stew. And Slugcat Stew had actually was the one who put this game on our radar in the first place, and has written a review for so many games. He writes, "I love how video games now cover such a diverse range of subject matter. Of course, there's nothing wrong with a bit of escapism, with jumping on the heads of Koopas, but it's also nice to see video games taking their place among the other arts by providing a range of aesthetic experiences, including creating space for social criticism, as is the case with the game. I also enjoyed the use of Kafka esque surrealism and supernatural infused satire.
Mhm.
Uh, and yeah, we've touched
We
on
spoke
that.
about that exactly.
We've
Yeah.
touched on that for sure, and I would agree. I would agree, Stu. Thanks for writing in. Um, if you would like to have your standouts read on the show, please play the game with us, and then Michael will do a call out in our Discord, and you can reply to that with any standouts you have, and we will read them on the show. So we love getting them.
Yes, we do.
Okay, Michael. Last thing we need to do for Don't Get Your Hopes Up. Do we recommend the game? And if so, to whom would we recommend it?
Well, I would say a big yes, because it's a free game, right?
Mhm.
First of all, so it doesn't actually cost you any money except your time to kind of go through it. And I think that if you are a story-driven player, who likes quiet narrative first experiences, where the heart is on the writing, the mood, and the characters, then this is definitely a game you could look at. If you're interested in political or documentary style games, we haven't had many of those. This is definitely one of them. And also, if you like, comics, zines, or kind of experimental visual novels, and you want to see what is out there at the moment, I think that this is a fitting game that kind of fits those categories, where we kind of use photos and essay-like structures. Feels very much like an indie comic, if that makes sense. But it's non-fiction. Then yes, definitely try Don't Get Your Hopes Up. So a big thumbs up from my side, Marcus. What about you?
Yeah, I kind of mentioned where I guess a lot of the
Mm,
recommendation right off the when I was talking about my top line thoughts. This isn't a fun game, but I think
yeah,
it's an important game.
yeah.
And so from that perspective, I'd recommend it. It's free. It's only an hour. I think
Mm,
like we've stolen it a little bit, but our good friend Eric Dovetail talks about games being an empathy gym and
yes,
an opportunity to exercise the muscle of uh, empathy. And I
yeah,
think, like, for you and I, Michael, it's been years since we've had to look for and rent apartment rentals.
yeah.
Um, Things have changed since we had to look for apartments, and I feel like this is a great, I don't know, illustration of being able to see what people are dealing with. Obviously,
Mhm,
like the specifics, again, there are some surreal aspects to the way in which Krish presents their apartment search, but the challenges I think are very real and probably different and dare I say more challenging today than they were when we were doing this sort of stuff. So it's a
correct.
really good opportunity for us to kind of see some of those challenges that people are dealing with today. And I think like anytime that you can experience things that allow you to see other perspectives, that's a good thing. So from that perspective, it's a pretty strong recommendation from me, even if I didn't really enjoy playing the game. Right.
I'm with you.
So
I'm with
yeah.
you.
Okay, so that's it for episode 39. We would, of course, really appreciate it if you shared, liked, subscribed, and left us a 5-star review wherever you happen to be listening. Aside from that, you can follow the show on Blue Sky at Tiny Game Chronicles. You can follow me on Blue Sky at Marcus O'Neill 79. You can also find me on the two other podcasts that I do. Hype Factor, a fantasy critic podcast. It's a monthly show that I do with my good friend John, all things fantasy critic. And the other show, Brothers from Another Mothership, or BFAM for short, that I do with three other good friends, Matt, Ron, and Quag. We mostly just argue about video games on that one. So
It's fun arguments, though.
it's fun arguments, yes. Michael, where can people find you?
So you can also find me on Blue Sky under Drellish, DRELLESH, as well as on our tiny Discord, Tiny Game Chronicles Discord. The link to our Discord will be in the show notes. And I was wondering, Marcus, before we move on right to the end, I asked myself the question, what is the next game that I would love the developer of Don't Get Your Hopes Up to, Krish? And I was
Mm.
thinking, you know what? A dating game would be interesting.
Yeah, Nagachaka will be all on that. He loves his dating
Absolutely.
sims.
And it's
Yeah,
been a
yeah,
long time since we have dated, right?
yeah. It's been a long that we could maybe it's some sort of online dating or something that I
Exactly.
happened like before or after, well after I kind of got out of the dating game. So
I think you can just use the apartments as an inspiration with regards to what your dating options are.
yeah. There you go.
Very good.
You can also find Tiny Game Chronicles on YouTube. We post the largely unedited episodes over there, and try to do at least one short per episode. So if you want to see our handsome faces and see some of the content that we're doing, just find us on YouTube and like and subscribe over there. And one last thing, Michael, I didn't want to forget.
Yes.
We are now doing a monthly article on our good
Yes.
friend So Many Games. Jason over at So Many Games had reached out to us, and think we're going to do a kind of a really interesting collaboration where we are going to write an article for one of the games that we cover, and
Hmm.
it'll show up on the So Many Games website. And you just was it just today, as of recording?
Exactly. Exactly. We
Your article
published
for a musical story had just
a
popped
musical
up.
story, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's in the same flavor as we do our Tiny Game Chronicles review feelings of the game. I think we just, or at least I and Marcus will also do it in a way that he sees fit. Just our own personal impressions, our own kind of salt and pepper onto things that are maybe not always on the show.
Mhm.
So you're welcome to read our thoughts about our private thoughts about
Yep.
the game that we're discussing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we're big fans of So Many Games, so it was really cool
Yes.
to have Jason reach out to us. Michael, you've written a few articles for Jason in the past, and yeah, so you know, check out So Many Games. Anyways, I guess to do a little plug for Jason, they have a lot of reviews, a lot of cool indies, some tiny, some less tiny, but yeah, they've got a lot of great writers over there. So check
And
out so many
I
games.co.uk.
and I did warn Jason that I will be stealing some of his writers to maybe be guests on our show, right?
Yes, we've
So
done this already, actually. So maybe,
yes,
well, if you happen to be listening and you write, maybe you can expect a reach out from Michael at some point.
there we
We'd love
go.
to have you on. Yeah. Okay, Michael. The last thing we need to do is introduce our next game. So this one was developed and published by Glow Frog Games.
Mhm,
Just a recent release here, like within the last month. It
mhm.
is described as a cozy. I know we're doing a cozy game, Michael.
There we
Scrapbooking
go.
game that takes you on a heartfelt journey about friendship and getting older. And the name of this game, Michael, is
Pieced together.
Piece Together. So this one was actually reviewed by a friend of the show, Topher,
Mhm.
on So Many Games, and looked interesting. It's recent. It's short. We said, why not? Let's do it. So I'm looking
Yep.
forward to jumping in. I know you've started it, Michael.
Yes, I am. I'm practicing my cozy muscle.
That's right.
Yeah. So far so good. We'll get into it when we see each
We
other
will get
the
into it.
next time.
That's
So
right.
piece together game are for the next 2 weeks.
It sounds like I might have to play this one on my laptop, Michael, rather than Steam Deck.
Not exactly sure. It's not Steam Deck verified yet because it is so early. But we
Yep.
wanted to also get a game that has just recently been released.
Yep.
And so this one got a very good Open Critic review.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I was very curious. So I'm glad that we're getting stuck into it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Michael, I guess we can wrap things up. And I will just say thank you for listening. And we will be back in 2 weeks with Pieced Together.
See you then.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.